Okay. I'd like to call this meeting, Strategic Planning Committee, April 6th, to order. Tonight, we have, so far, are missing Dempsey Lambert, and I spoke with Councilman Ogeron earlier today. He's not going to make it. He's stuck in Lafayette doing some work. Thankfully, Chairwoman Cazzo sat in
Happy
to
Thank
allow
you.
us to have a quorum. And has anyone spoken with Travis?
I have not.
I've not, no.
Okay, so I guess we'll see. I would assume he's coming because he didn't say otherwise. So I asked Michael to do the invocation and pledge.
It's my first time doing one of these in a while, so bear with me. Please prepare yourselves for prayer. Lord, thank you so much for this evening. We appreciate you guiding us here, even though the weather was a little bad for some of us. I'm glad everybody made it safe. I hope that you guide us in the right way, that we make the right decisions tonight for the people we represent in this lovely parish, and make sure that we're all safe going home. Thank you so much. In God's name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There will be no chairs additions tonight. Do we have any public comment?
Not so far.
Nope. All right, moving on. Number 5, general business. We're going to talk about safety, and Chief LeBlanc is here to give a little talk on it. Last meeting, we kind of touched a little bit on the safety initiative that we are starting in Ascension Parish in accordance with Chief LeBlanc and the Sheriff's Department and the City of Gonzales, et cetera. So I'm going to turn it over to Chief LeBlanc.
It's a blessing to be here, and look, I want to thank the committee and thank the council for taking what I would call a proactive stance on safety in the community instead of a reactive stance. You know, we've gone most of our lives being reactive. We need to start being proactive. So I was asked to do a little presentation on something that's probably dear to my heart, and it's, of course, distracted driving and what causes that. You know, I'll say this, that, you know, most of the major incidents or major accidents that we have in Ascension Parish, it's sad to say, but most of them are caused by distracted driving. You know, and we've had some serious fatalities here lately that you want to say a prayer for the families and you want to say a prayer for the residents, but, you know, in the long run, we need to look at our driving behaviors. So let's talk about that for a little while. So John's got me this little fancy little thing right here. So tonight we're going to talk about distracted driving in Ascension Parish. So basically, I think you started with your last meeting, and we're continuing today. This is going to be a community awareness. You know, we got to make sure that the community knows that we do have distracted driving in our parish, and that we want to do everything we can to be proactive from a council standpoint, from an administration standpoint, and of course from a safety standpoint. So I'm pleased to see the administration and the council taking the proper steps to help the awareness of distracted driving in our parish. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration estimates that driver inattention is a factor in 80% of highway collisions. By failing to give full attention to the road, distracted drivers put themselves, their passengers, and everyone else on the road at risk. This is, like I said, you know, talking with the sheriff's office, talking with the local fire departments, this is definitely a serious issue, not in just one part of our parish, but all parts of our parish. So Ascension Parish, let's continue to do our part to prevent distracted driving. So, you know, distracted driving is one of the main causal factors in many collisions, as the driver does not see a hazard leading to a collision and therefore cannot react. And vehicle distractions include the use of, and we see this every day on the road, the use of mobile phones, eating, talking with passengers, and inappropriate use of vehicle entertainment and navigation systems. Distractions outside of the vehicle include the driver looking at anything that keeps their eyes or thoughts away from the driving task. This includes collision scenes, advertisements, and pedestrians. This is also starting to get bad because now, when we were growing up in Ascension Parish, we basically had the regular advertisement signs. Now we got the signs that are flashing at us and throwing lights at us and look, no fault on the people that do that for a living, but just keep in mind that when you're driving down Airline or somewhere else and you got signs that are flashing at you, it takes your eyes off the road for a second. So factors that contribute to the distracted driving, distracted driving is an activity that could divert a person's attention away from the primary task of driving. All distractions endanger drivers, passengers, and bystanders. Engaging in visual manual subtasks such as reaching for a phone. I cannot tell you how many wrecks that we've worked, even parish wrecks, where we talked to the drivers and they were reaching down for something and took their eyes off the road. Happens all the time. Drop your phone on the floor, try to reach down and grab your phone, and the next thing you know, you're taking a couple turns that ain't pleasant for us. So associated with the use of handheld phones and other portable devices increase the risk of getting in a crash by 3 times. But because text messaging, responding to emails requires visual attention from the driver, it is far most alarming distraction. I can't tell you, nobody has to take my word for it. Stop at any red light in Ascension Parish and look to your left and look to your right, and I guarantee you're going to see 1 or 2 cars doing something with a telephone. It happens everywhere. It doesn't just happen in Ascension. It happens across the state of Louisiana. It happens everywhere. And how many times you've been behind a vehicle at a red light and the light turns green and the car never moves? Mm-hmm. It's because they're distracted by doing something else besides watching the red light. So it is an issue. So 5 seconds is the average time your eyes are off the road while you're texting. When traveling at 55 miles per hour, that's enough time to cover the length of a football field, blindfolded. So here's the things that we see on a daily basis. Texting, using your cell phone, eating and drinking. That is all more common than you can ever imagine. People on the run, people are always on the go. They got to get that hamburger, they got to get that hot dog, they rolling, talking to passengers. How many people we see grooming, putting on makeup, combing their hair. We've even seen people brushing their teeth while they're driving. So even though we appreciate the hygiene, moves, reading, including back in the day. Thank God we got the GPSs now. But look how many people have been involved in wrecks because they were even reading big maps, atlas maps, trying to get somewhere, using navigation systems, watching video, disciplining children. Disciplining children is the one that hits most home for me because that's the cause of the major fatality that took place in Santa Maria a couple of years ago. Disciplining children went off the road, and God bless that family for having to deal with that. So Ascension Parish residents, all of us, every one of us, have to play a major role in this new safety initiative that this council and this administration is pushing. And we here in Ascension Parish need to understand the big picture while we're driving. We have to use proper scanning techniques. Scanning requiring the eye movement to use to keep you alert to any changes in the big picture. How many times, and I ask you this whenever you drove to the courthouse today, how many times have you driven down the road and cannot remember driving past certain landmarks such as schools and stores and gas stations? Chances are your eyes were fixed ahead and you went into a driver's trance where vital information was not picked up. Your awareness diminishes and your brain is not necessarily alert. This is seriously dangerous driving. Happens all the time. I can't tell you how many times you talk to somebody and they say, I don't even remember passing that school. I don't even remember passing that gas station or something like that. So, being aware of the surroundings is critical when driving. You know, keep your eyes moving every 2 seconds. Observe things in quick glances. This technique maximizes your vision. It keeps your early warning systems continuously engaged and your mind alert. It assures your avoidance to fixed or blank stares. Before entering an intersection, look left, look right, then look left again. My daughter, the only daughter I have, I got 4 boys and 1 daughter. She just started driving, and of course, causing me to have heart failure, you know. But you know, you try to, you know, when you're riding with them, you tell them, you know, you looked left and you looked right, but you didn't look left again. And because you didn't look left again, that causes several accidents on the road. You know, you got to have increased eye activity. That stimulates the brain. And do not yield to distractions inside or outside your vehicle or your mind, and steer clear of others who do. And then last, you know, you hear this all the time. If a driver states, I didn't see him until it was too late, this driver's early warning system may not have been activated. The big picture is moving picture that must be continuously scanned. Scanning keeps your vision active, allowing you to detect problems in the making. So I threw this together for y'all because I really believe that, you know, and I think you believe, and that's the reason why this is the second meeting in a row that you're talking about this, but we do have a issue or a problem with distracted driving, and we all need to do our part. The residents, everybody needs to do their part to understand that this is a problem, you know. And like I said, I applaud this council. This is a remarkable way for us to continue to be proactive instead of reactive. So I think this is just one of many safety initiatives that we're going to push over the next couple of years here in the parish. So I applaud you again, and I'm open for any questions you might have.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. And also, I forgot to introduce you as the Ascension Parish Government Safety and Security Director.
Yeah, so I'm blessed. I'm on my 3rd week, and it's truly a blessing. You know, my whole entire life has been dedicated to Ascension Parish. I've been a fire chief for 34 years in the parish, and to get the opportunity to come on board and be the new parish's safety and security director is definitely a blessing for me and my family. So I appreciate the administration and the council giving us that opportunity for sure.
Absolutely. Chair Lady Kaiser, would you like to start with any questions?
I'm satisfied with the presentation and impressed that we're going to do a public awareness, make people aware. I have some questions when we get to the resolution about what that entails, but
Absolutely.
I'm happy to wait on that.
Right.
Thank you so much, Chief. You
appreciate
know how excited I am to have
Yes.
you in that job. I've probably, if anybody has congratulated you more than me, I don't know who it
No,
would be.
and I appreciate it.
I've
We
been some
we-
excited.
We definitely have a great culture here to move forward.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Yeah, first off, Chief, thank you very much for that presentation. That was a lot of information. You know, it's a lot of stuff that we know, but it's good to have some terminology to put behind it. You know, the driver trance, I think that's something that's going to stick with me because I'm just as guilty of that. I'll wake up
Right.
and be like, wait, where was I just now? How did I get
right.
here?
Happens a lot.
I do appreciate that. I'm truly excited to see kind of how far we can go with this. I mean, I would love, you know, the state of Louisiana to have a phone ban. Just, I mean, most other states do. I'm surprised that we're still lagging at that point. I think that's something that absolutely needs to happen. I mean, I have friends in other states that if I call them, it automatically says, I'm driving. Don't, you know, I'll call you when I'm ready or when I
Right.
can. So I think that's something that, you know, if we can maybe get some momentum going here, that we can put some pressure on the state level. So I do appreciate you working with us on this for sure, Chief. Thank you very much.
Yep. So I think that's what the A in Ascension stands for. We're gonna start it off first. And then the rest of the 63 parishes will follow right behind us.
I like
so
that.
let's get our people moving in the right direction, and the rest will follow us. I appreciate y'all.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. All right.
I had a couple more questions for you, or not
Okay.
even questions, comments, really.
Good.
The 5 seconds for a text message. Now, that's just 5 seconds to read a text message, to
Yeah, so that's 5 seconds. So when you're reading a text message or even trying to send one, just imagine, your eyes off the road for 5 seconds.
And that's a football field?
That's a football field long,
Wow.
yes. And people just don't realize that's a lot of traveling,
Oh, yeah.
especially if you're doing 55 miles an hour.
Oh, yeah.
Some of us, some people drive a little faster than 55,
And in the driver's trance, and I've experienced this before, especially in like long distance driving or at night, because I used to prefer to travel at night because you didn't have traffic. But then it got to a point where I don't want to do it now because I get sleepy.
That's right.
But one thing, and I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, that's always kind of made me scan the road, is I always look for deer.
Right.
Like nighttime, daytime,
Right.
wildlife, anything.
We have some roads in Ascension Parish you need to be for deer.
Absolutely.
Highway 74 from 73 all the way to 3115, drove it for 30 years to the local plants. Deer out there all the time, So yeah, sometimes you gotta be. Somebody a little smarter than us over the years figured out that we had this driver stance and we would doze off or so that's why they started putting the bumps on the side of the road. They're hoping whenever you hit those bumps on the side of the road, that'll wake you up, So,
That's right.
So that happens all the time.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I do appreciate it, and having you work with us with your experience and with your credentials will add a lot of credibility to this. So I do thank you for that.
I appreciate it. And again, I thank y'all for taking that proactive stance.
Yes,
I
sir.
appreciate y'all.
Moving on to general business, item B. A resolution to ban handheld devices while driving. Now, I want to discuss language of and, the context of making a resolution to stop people from texting and driving and to stop people from fumbling with their phone or messing with social media, Facebook, any of that while they're driving. I think there's a two-part problem to this. Number one being, obviously when you're driving itself, it's dangerous. And your eyes are off the road while you're controlling a vehicle. So there's that. We all know that happens. But then number two, you have a lot of people, as Chief LeBlanc was saying, if you look to your left and to your right at an intersection, that are on their phones at a red light. Now, this is a lot more dangerous than you first think, and also it's illegal. I mean, I say illegal. You can't text right there at the red light. It's just like you're driving. I mean, because if you go and you shouldn't go, you get in an accident. Or if you should go and you don't, and somebody's not paying attention, they're looking at a text, they're coming up behind you and it's a green light and they hit you. I mean, there's countless situations and scenarios where accidents happen because of cell phones. Now, with that said, I know this is going to be a touchy subject because, I mean, everyone uses their cell phone. I think I'd like to get a little more public feedback. I've talked to several people about this, and everybody seems to feel the same way. They don't like to see it. They know it's terrible, but hey, we all do it. I mean, I've been guilty of it. So I'm going to go down and kind of see what y'all's thoughts are, and we can go from there. Chairwoman Gaza.
Thank you. So I know that most folks are aware that a resolution does not hold the weight of law. It's just merely a suggestion.
Yes, ma'am.
And so I'm trying to figure out kind of what we're trying to do here. Are we proposing to the council through this committee that they come up with an ordinance that bans handheld devices while driving? Or are we just, are we doing, what the chief talked about, just public awareness, talking about this issue? I'm not sure what the state laws are about handheld devices. I think that is already in place.
I know we can't
on this.
text and drive.
I thought maybe that was already in
Yeah,
place
that's
on
right.
the state level. And then I don't know, if we were to pursue an ordinance to this effect, making it illegal in the parish of Ascension, what would be the difference in that? And secondly, would the sheriff's office be willing to write tickets based on an ordinance provided by the parish?
Yeah.
So I just think we have some questions we need to answer.
And to give you a little background on both of those, I've brought Sheriff Weber into this conversation from day one for those obvious reasons. We have got to have enforcement if we're going to do something, and we want to do it from the beginning with, I guess you could say, in step with the fire department and the sheriff's department and the city police and whatnot around. The answer to, is this really an ordinance that we're making to enforce completely, or is this kind of like Chief LeBlanc was saying, an awareness? I'd say it's a mixture, in the sense of, if we make an ordinance that bans handheld devices, it's not going to ban talking on the phone if you have Bluetooth. So that's fine. You can talk on the phone with Bluetooth, and I'm not saying you can't. But what it will stop inadvertently is people text messaging. Because what Sheriff Weber says, and was telling me in our conversations, is it's really hard or almost impossible for them to enforce, hey, you were text messaging. Because people just sit there and say, oh, no, I was dialing my phone. I was making a call. I was answering a call. I was looking at the time. So by banning the handheld devices, it gives them a constant that they can actually do something. Now, in discussion of that, I feel like I'm not trying to, and I don't feel like the intention of this is to punish people and to give more reasons for fines and more worries. So the discussions were, hey, we'll just start giving out, maybe put a deputy out at intersections and give it to people at intersections, starting off where it's just a little print warning. We can start off to where, look, you get 2 warnings, and after that, I mean, come on. After that, you really should probably stop texting or using your phone at intersections. And make it a blast campaign to where we put the information out there for months and months and do what we have to do. So I guess to answer those 2 questions is yes and yes. I do agree 100% we have got to have cooperation, and this has got to make sense on all levels of the law, enforcement, making, and the judicial system, which we're getting District Attorney Ricky Babb and everyone involved in this also. 'Cause in the same token, what's the purpose of writing these tickets and spending this money for the enforcement if you can't do anything with it at the end?
He gets thrown out in court. Yeah. I think Chairwoman got the best question. My biggest concern was enforcement, and as long as we have Sheriff Weber on board to whatever level of enforcement we need to get this passed through, I'm fine with whatever we need to do, passing resolutions, or even, like Ms. Cazzo said, even potentially looking into an ordinance if that's the route we decide to go. So my biggest concern was enforcement. So if we can get it enforced, and we can maybe get Sheriff Weber to come to these meetings and kind of explain how they plan on enforcing it, I think that would be good to kind of give not just us, but everybody watching these meetings and the citizens, and everybody can kind of start to understand this process a little bit better. And that way, as bringing more awareness, and then once we have awareness to everybody to death, then we can say, now we're going to start really cracking down on it. I think that's a great idea. Absolutely.
I do appreciate all those. And
So I would think what we would want to do procedurally is a resolution asking our legal counsel to create an ordinance in cooperation with the sheriff's office that would meet with their approval.
would you be willing to make that resolution?
I will certainly make that in the form of a motion. I have not heard from the sheriff on this, so I look forward to hearing
Absolutely.
from him on this. And I'm happy to make that in the form of a resolution that the legal counsel speak to the sheriff.
Do we have a
And
second on that?
that they make a determination about whether, what an ordinance would look like, and propose one to us.
Absolutely.
And even pass that through, District Attorney Babin's office as well.
Absolutely.
Just to let him to look at it
And,
as well.
and all the judges would need
Yeah.
to, who handles
Traffic.
traffic court?
I know that Aaron.
Who is it?
Pardon? The parish court, so
Parish
that would
court.
be
That's gonna be Lanu.
Judge Lanu.
Yeah.
So we would need some input from her on what she would, because we had, I can't even remember what the topic was that we passed at one time, and Judge Lambert said, oh, no, I'm not
Oh,
enforcing
absolutely.
that. So I'm I don't want to get in that bind again.
No, exactly.
Absolutely
So
not.
if my motion is that legal counsel get with all of the stakeholders and work to develop an ordinance that would have all of the stakeholders' consent, and then we can bring that back here, review that.
And
If we pass it, we'll send it to council.
I'll second that motion.
All right, and as far as discussion on this, I agree this is going to be a ordeal that takes a lot of time. You know, I know we're not going to be able to put something out there quickly, but this is the beginning, and you know, I do appreciate it. Do we have any opposition?
I don't think so.
All right, with that said, that passes.
All right.
Now, moving on to C, penalties and violations for garbage truck debris and liquid waste. Now, this is another item that is really starting to become an eyesore in the parish, in the sense of garbage trucks having things fly out of their truck while they're driving. And I see it often because over, you know, I'm near the Cajun Village and the cabin a lot, and that's going right near the dump at 70. I saw, within the last month, I've seen a three-wheeler falling off the back of a dump truck on the hood of a car on 22. I've seen a garbage truck going down 70 with saran wrap a good 50, 60 feet behind it. I mean, a car was probably 5, 6 car lengths behind before they could even go there. And they didn't know, obviously.
Yeah.
You know, and they did some studies in Baton Rouge, you know, where they had someone follow around, an investigator follow around a garbage truck for a specific amount of time. And over this study, they figured out that each garbage truck drops about 7 pounds of waste
Like every day?
every day. Now, 7 pounds of waste from garbage,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a lot. And if you consider the amount of garbage trucks that Ascension Parish has going through it daily, and that problem is, once again, twofold. You have your things falling out of trucks, you have your things, you know, your debris that comes out of the trucks and whatnot. And then you have your liquid waste, because they have a lot of these trucks that go through and they leak from the dumpsters, whether it be grease or whatever you call that stuff in the bottom of dumpsters. I don't know if it's a specific.
Yeah.
Dumpster juice.
That's right, that's right. Dripping all over subdivisions and nice, new, pretty roads that we're making. So with that said, I don't want to come out, you know, guns blazing, trying to punish all these companies, but I think they should be held to a higher standard and to higher account than just regular citizens. You know, this is,
Do we have some, I'm sorry to interrupt. Do we have something in place for regular citizens? Because I do see, like, a lot of
I
people
believe
with
we
just
have a
stuff flying out of their
$500
trucks.
$500 littering fine, don't we?
I had a discussion today, if you don't mind, with a citizen who recommended that we just put some signs out. We don't have any do not litter. Littering is
I know
a.
City of Gonzales does, but
Yeah,
the parish doesn't.
I don't see any in the parish, so maybe we could
And I
discuss
like
that
idea. I
too.
think that's a great
I didn't mean
idea.
to digress here,
Oh, no.
but I share Michael's concern. What is the law around garbage trucks and their debris today? And does it have penalties around it? And if it does, what do we need to do to encourage enforcement?
And how would that law be any different from just a regular littering law?
And that's what I wanted to touch on here. And right now, as far as garbage trucks, in Ascension Parish, there's nothing on the books that, you know, that I've talked to administration about on it that they know of that is specific for them. And when I'm saying we should hold them to a higher standard, I mean, this is something that can be solved and fixed. You know, you have a regular littering fine of, say, $500 in the parish right now. Say that doubles, you know, and even say the extra $500 goes directly into beautifying and picking up litter and cleaning our rivers and waterways, you know, to where that is directly showing effects. Now, with that said, once again, I don't want to just come out guns blazing on this and start writing these tickets and passing this ordinance and really slamming down, I mean, I think it needs to be announced. We need to contact each of these companies. We need to let them know, look, this is a problem.
Mhm.
We see it. This is the ordinance that's going to be put in place. We'd like to give you some time to work with you. You know, what can we do? What suggestions do you make? And then eventually just move forward from there.
What about whenever they're like dumping the dumpsters into the big trucks and then it falls off to the side and doesn't fall into the trucks and they
Well,
don't clean that up? Is that going to be
That's
part of
private
that as well?
property there.
That'll be in there as well?
That's private property.
Okay, so you're just talking about like the roads and stuff.
Exactly.
Okay.
So would you entertain a motion similar to the previous one?
Yeah.
That legal counsel
Absolutely.
look into what the current law is and what could be done to strengthen it. Talk to those stakeholders, sheriff's office, even the members of the, these garbage truck, all these providers. They certainly, I think it's always helpful if you can get them to the table. I
Absolutely.
would certainly not encourage councilmen to specifically sit down with them. I think that's a good thing for the administration to do.
Yes.
To sit down with them. And then we would be bringing an ordinance or beginning to encourage the enforcement of an already existing ordinance that was something everybody could live with.
I like it.
And I would like to include in that a motion that the parish get more signs up in our communities.
Absolutely.
I was just told that they have some on order right now.
Great, fantastic.
Well, they must have been watching the meeting.
Somebody's watching the meeting.
yeah.
Fantastic.
Do we
Well,
have
to
a
the-
second on
to-
that?
I will second Chairwoman Cazzo's motion for sure.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay. And any objections? No, we don't.
No objection, unless you're going to object.
No, sir. That motion passes.
Awesome. Now the one we've all been wanting to discuss.
All right. And I believe we may have a guest in the audience tonight that's here specifically for this agenda item. Item D,
The fireworks.
discussion of a regulatory ordinance for fireworks in the parish. And I'd like to say hello to Councilman Cagnolati over there.
Sitting by his lonesome.
Thank you, Chair. It's good to be here. I was just curious because I was on the city council in Gonzales. We did have an ordinance, and typically of what you discussed in the first item, it's one that's hard to enforce, to say the least. But I think you had said prior to the meeting, you told me that we're looking at a very conservative approach to try and just say, when there's a burn ban or when there's certain other situations, it just won't be allowable. And then we're just going to put the word out there, I guess. But I'm just here to listen and learn, but I encourage some kind of a fireworks ordinance. I agree with it.
Thank you. And, as far as what myself and Councilman Cagnolati were discussing before the meeting was, being very conservative in the sense of when fireworks are sold, I mean, pop them 24/7. Nobody's going to mess with you. During the holidays, 4th of July, and that gives you a nice little span there. And then I'd like to maybe discuss during regular days and regular seasons of the year, limiting 2 weekends. And, during the week, maybe stop at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, or 8 o'clock.
Well, shouldn't it follow the noise ordinance rules? Because they are noisy.
I think that would work well.
Yeah, if we kind of did the fireworks along the same, I think it's like 10 p.m. to 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. or something is noise ordinance. I mean, obviously on weekends that
it
gets
would be
later,
different.
yeah. But
And
during the
then
week, I think 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. is when the noise ordinance goes into effect that you can get in trouble for that.
Makes sense.
Yeah. I do get a lot of complaints about fireworks, and it's mainly primarily like after the 4th of July or after New Year's Eve is wrapped up and complete, and we're all moving on with the next few days of our lives, and you have those people who have leftover fireworks, so they just start popping them just to get rid of them. I think that does become an issue because, usually those days kind of fall on, if they fall on a weekend or something, then you've got work that Monday and you got people shooting fireworks late at night on a Sunday night. I usually tell them to call the sheriff because it does break a noise ordinance and that they can, do something about it. But like Councilman Cagnolati said, it is really hard to enforce that, to see who's actually shooting the fireworks. And, unless you actually catch them doing it, it's hard to determine where they are. So I'd be interested to see how we could enforce that.
Yeah, it's much more complicated than most people think, I guarantee you. But especially because you also have the issues around decibel levels and was it exceeding the decibel level when it happened and did it not? And, so I think this is similar to the previous items, probably just needs to be directed to parish legal counsel to get a look at the various ordinances regionally and see what we might could do that, send them to us, let us all take a look at them and see if we can make some recommendations. I think mimicking the city of Gonzales might be or at least to some degree mimicking the city of Gonzales
And
might
maybe
be
even a little
helpful.
more conservative.
We might
Maybe at
want
least a
to-
good jumping off point.
It's
you
a,
know,
it's
to
a good
start off.
place to start.
Because, I'm the
And,
last person that I would ever dream would say, hey, to put an ordinance on fireworks. Because I love fireworks.
Yeah.
These days it's more of a, hey, my kids are going to do fireworks, so let's go
Exactly.
do them. But still, it's a memory that we have, and I don't want to stop people from having that.
No.
Yeah, there is a state statute which is under the, I guess, under the direction of the fire marshal's office. And locally, in Gonzales at least, I think it's the fire chief and the police chief, from an enforcement, direction. So it just depends on how you want to approach it. And I think Terry's advice is good. Let's go to legal. And also, I think include the sheriff in some conversations because he might be part of the enforcement side of it.
And I think we could probably get a fire chief's opinion if we needed one.
You want to follow your formula on the motion?
I would. I'd like to follow, thank you for that. I'd like to follow my formula that this matter be referred to the legal counsel for the creation of an ordinance after consideration by the stakeholders.
And I will second that motion. Keeping our legal busy this week.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, there's enough of them now.
There
We
is,
can
yeah.
get to
We got,
work.
we got a slew of them.
And I do not object, so
Thank you.
that
Thank you.
motion passes. Moving on to item E. Now, this is completely changing direction and subject of the items that we've been on. This is going back toward the drainage ordinance and back toward the mitigation of property, if one is in the floodplain or flood zone. Right now, the way the ordinance reads is, for someone to develop property and say they're in flood zone A, flood zone A1, they have got to mitigate the offset of the drainage that they are making from building their home, in the sense of they have got to make a pond on their property, considering or taking into consideration the water table. So only so much depth of a pond can count for what they're building up on their property to build their home and to build their driveway and whatnot. And then, it just becomes unfeasible for a lot of these people that don't have an acre plus of land. And I mean, most people, I don't say most people, a lot of people are going toward smaller scale yards and whatnot, to where a quarter of an acre, if you have a half acre, or even if you have an acre, you don't really have room to build a pond on your property to do it. And to be able to mitigate that, you have to figure out how to drain that hydrologically in the same floodplain. Now, I know that sounds like a lot of jargon there, but basically what they're saying is the parish is separating the different drainage basins, and we have got to mitigate or make up for the use of the property that we develop within that same watershed. Now, the idea that I'm proposing, or the idea that I'm putting out there, is for the parish to go out and to go throughout the whole parish and buy large amounts of property. And I'm talking about large amounts of property that are not accessible, large amounts of property that may be, along right-of-ways or nearby that people don't, that's for sale, where you get it for thousands an acre, And then once it gets to a point where someone, say, one of your constituents want to go build a home, and they have a quarter of an acre to do it on, but it's in the flood zone, they can come to the parish and say, look, this is my plans. Well, to mitigate the drainage that you're making here, to mitigate the impact that you're making on the drainage, we can offer them, look, you can buy this acreage, say half an acre over here, in the same flood zone, or this, not flood zone, the same drainage basin. When you buy that property there, you do the same sense. If you're building a home 3 foot up or 2 foot up, and you're taking that much holding away during a storm or something, that property that you're buying elsewhere needs to be improved to where it will also hold a little bit of extra water or a little bit of extra anything during a rain or storm. Now, that could look many ways, especially if we look along these bayous and along waterways and whatnot, where it's landlocked property anyways. We could have all kinds of nature trails. We could do some of these parks where we have the levee around it, what we're talking about, and have the water pumped in.
Yeah.
And you can do it continuously if you look at the big maps and the big things. Once we get all of these studies back from HNTB with the master flood plan and all that, we'll have all the information we
Yeah.
need for this to make it happen. So essentially, I guess what I'm proposing is for the parish to kind of, I guess, for us to basically buy the property for us to mitigate for the residents, because we could do it at a very, very cheap, very, very cheap price compared to someone going out and buying property existing or doing the studies to find property hydrologically connected, et cetera, et cetera. And I think in the same sense, in the same token, it's allowing the parish to build parks, recreation along waterways and in different areas and whatnot of the parish that otherwise would never be used or improved. So I'm going to start off with any comments, questions.
Starting with me, so I would suggest that this be referred to the East Ascension Gravity Drainage District.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say.
And
Yeah.
I think there has been significant discussion about this amongst the administration. I think it's being thought about favorably, I think, amongst councilmen, particularly those who visited Houston. So I just think the most important thing to do with this is to refer it to the East Ascension Gravity Drainage District for development.
Do you think it's ready for that? Or
No, I don't think it's anywhere near. In
That's
fact,
what I'm saying. So we need to spend some time and put
I
some
don't
ideas
think we have
before
the
bring it to
authority
them.
to do that.
No, I mean,
think
just
that's
refer it, is what I'm saying. I
Yeah.
don't think it's ready to refer it.
Well, I think you can just say, this is an issue we'd like for East Ascension Gravity Drainage
Mm-hmm.
District to take up.
Okay.
I think what needs to happen, frankly, and I had this discussion today, is that the parish president would be wise to create a commission, appoint a commission of stakeholders as well as members of the council or members of the East Ascension Gravity Drainage Board. And as we did with the floodplain management, as we did with the sewer, and that body, that group of people of his choosing could get around the table and bring in the appropriate
plan.
experts to help us to develop this kind of program. I think it's certainly worthy of consideration. But I think it either needs to be referred and East Ascension Gravity Drainage District needs to handle it, or the parish president needs to be encouraged by members of this body to create a commission and do some work on it on his,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
in his time.
And I like the idea. The retention basins, obviously, like Chairwoman Cazzo said, when we went to Houston, we learned a lot about those and we saw the benefits of them, them being a park that we can flood intentionally. I think it was a beautiful idea and we were all very excited about it. I kind of have to agree, this probably should be discussed in drainage with, the full members of the drainage committee there to kind of present their ideas, because about half of us on drainage went and half of us did not. So it would be a good kind of back and forth, to have a good discussion. I do like the idea of a commission. I think that's kind of how we've gotten everything. I mean, we have a transportation commission that kind of does big planning for stuff like that. So I think that's a good idea as well. So I would be open to any kind of discussion on this, because I know that this is a big issue. I mean, it's especially huge in my and Aaron's district, because we're the most condensed populations. So we do have the smaller lots that are people that are having to try to mitigate that. So I'm absolutely on board with trying to find ways to make our mitigation efforts a little bit easier for our citizens. But I do think that in order to do that, we will need to have at least the East Ascension Drainage Board weigh in on this and give
Oh,
a lot of their ideas too. So I'm on board with that. Thank you.
Any program like this would be under their authority.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, I think with that said, that very well can be what we do, is refer it to the East Ascension Drainage.
Or to the
you know,
administration for.
Yeah, administration.
further
Let's do the
development.
administration
Yeah.
first, because I'd like to get a little more involved, to have a little more meat for the
Exactly.
East Ascension
And I
Drainage.
think that's a
I
really
think
good
that's a
idea.
good idea.
Yeah. And you can, I mean, considering you're on drainage and this is kind of one of your projects, I think you'd be a great member of that commission with the administration, and then whoever else you guys seem.
Quite presumptuous of you, sir.
It's presumptuous
When the parish
Tuesday, so-
president names a commission, it's
That's
his,
right.
it's his baby.
I would
so-
just like to nominate Joel as a,
Yeah.
as a
Like
personal
you-
recommendation.
Oh, you would encourage him. to
Exactly, encourage it. There you go. That's
Select
the word.
Joel.
That's
There you
right,
go.
that's right.
Okay.
All right, so, with that said, I don't think anything needs to be said with that, other than we will have a little further discussion of it to the administration.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So we move on
Okay.
to item 6.
Motion to
Motion
adjourn.
to adjourn.
Thank you, Joel.
Any objections?
No.
Not a bit.
All right.